Specialist 5, Terry Willman, United States Army, Vietnam. I interviewed Terry the first time, it was July the 14th, 2006, almost 18 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona. I used Terry's interview for my Vietnam Remembered film, which many of you have watched, over almost 4 million people. And I can't find the original interview that I did, but I'm so thankful, thank God, that I was able to find Terry. He's still in the Arizona area, and last month, April 18, 2024, in Scottsdale, Arizona, I was fortunate to interview Terry along with Ed Masterson, Jerry McNally, Mark Bartlett, those from that first interview time, almost 18 years ago. So Terry was Specialist 5 in Vietnam, just a great story, a crew chief and a machine gunner on a Huey helicopter. Folks, he flew for a year in Vietnam. He was with the 101st Airborne and just tells a great story of the assault helicopter company he was with, the brigade, and this company, and just met so many amazing people. It was a journey interviewing Terry. It was such a blessing to see him again and to sit down for over an hour and interview his thoughts of Vietnam through his eyes and ears. And I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity. I want to let you know that Terry wrote a book, An Eagle's Eye View. It's his diary, his story of Vietnam, and from his perspective. This is a great book, folks. I would encourage you to get a copy of this. I'm going to put a link in the video description and in the comment section of this video. You can just click on it and you can order this book. I would highly recommend it. I know a lot of you want the books that I mentioned. Well, here's one right in my hands here. Terry signed it for me when I did the interview with him 18 years ago. An Eagle's Eye View, 101st Airborne, and lots of pictures in here of the people he served with. You're going to hear about him in the interview, so I won't give it away now, but I may mention this again at the end of the introduction. But just a great book and a fabulous fella, and it was a privilege to know him and his wife Carrie. Hi Carrie, and it's just a blessing to be able to share this with you. I want to thank Michael and Darlene Sarofsky and Trish Kerr Hansen from Hansen Desert Hills in Scottsdale for making it possible for you to watch Terry's story today. You guys, you helped me. You sponsored my work in Arizona last month, and eternally grateful for you. And I know God will bless you for it. And I appreciate both of you, Michael and Darlene and Trish. I appreciate you so much. And just God bless you guys. And we'll be sharing more of these interviews as time goes on. So, folks, that's about it for now. I just want to remind you that Voices of History Radio is on the air, and on June 5th, 6th, and 7th, a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be airing all D-Day stories that I've recorded over the years. The first love of my work, the D-Day veterans and World War II veterans, they're all gone. I got one I did visit in Arizona when I was there, Larry Meyer. He's about 101 now, but most of them are gone. But I've got their stories. Thank God I've got their stories. And we're going to just air D-Day programs. And you need to learn about the D-Day invasion. Without that, we wouldn't have won World War II in Europe. And just a pivotal point in our history. 80-year anniversary coming up, June 6th in 2024. I was there for the 60th anniversary twice in that year and the year before on Omaha Beach. Holy ground, folks. So, and on this YouTube channel, I'm beginning to release some more of my D-Day stories. I've got a couple dozen or more already, but I'm going to release more. I'm going to air my complete Omaha Beach film on June 6th too, on the radio station, and maybe on this channel too. I'll re-release it. So, okay, I think that's about it. Again, get Terry's book, An Eagle's Eye View. I'm so happy that I've got his interview. You're going to watch it now. Let's honor him, invite the kids, grandkids, and just watch this story. All these different parts of the story of Vietnam, and Terry tells it from his perspective as a crew chief. Okay, folks, thanks for watching, listening, subscribing to this channel. We're getting close to 60,000 subscribers, which is okay. I like that. And just share these stories. We got to get them in the hands of our young people, especially the radio station too, the app, Voices of History Radio app. And this is keep putting the history out there. And I'm just really, I thank God for it. So, amen. Okay, that's it for now. Enjoy Terry's story, and I'll talk to you in my next broadcast.
You haven't changed much, Larry.
Oh, hey, thank you.
You haven't, man.
Man, I'm 18 years older.
You know, your hair's just a little shorter because
Yeah.
it was more frizzed out last time I saw you,
The picture we took, but tell me how old you are now.
76.
So you were only 58 when I interviewed you. July of 2006.
Yeah.
You might have been 57, but
Yeah.
man, okay. And you said you've had some health problems,
Oh, yeah.
but you're doing okay. You're getting over that.
Yeah, well, like I said, the heart problems and then prostate cancer. But see, we sprayed Agent Orange over there a lot.
Yeah.
And we got soaked with that stuff, you know. Being in a helicopter, and then when we went to take a shower, the water we took showers in had Agent Orange in it because they just pumped it out of the river and filtered it. But they couldn't filter the Agent Orange out of it. And that was the same potable water they were giving us to drink. Thank God I didn't drink a lot of that potable water. I drink pop most of the time, you know, and I stayed away from that in the mess hall.
So are you saying that the Agent Orange attributed to the prostate cancer?
Oh yeah, yeah. And my heart disease, my arteries plugging up, that's another deal from Agent Orange. So
Is the VA compensating you for all of that?
oh yeah.
So you're probably 100%?
Yeah, they rated me at 100% for Agent Orange. Mm-hmm. And that was all the other things going on, you know.
Yeah. You look good though, man.
Yeah, you know what? I try to stay busy, you know. I live on 2 acres, so it's a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
Mowing and weed eating. I'll tell you what, man, it takes me like 2 hours just to weed eat that place.
Well, you're doing. How's your wife's health? She doing good?
No, her fibromyalgia is getting real bad, you know, so it's hard for her to kind of get around now, you know. So
Well, you have to tell her I said hi.
I'll do that.
Tell me again how old you were when you went to Vietnam.
I was 21.
So you graduated in high school what year?
67.
So you didn't go to Nam till 69.
Right.
Okay, so in 67, high school, how are you and your peers feeling about Vietnam being drafted?
It really didn't bother me because when I got my draft notice, I enlisted because I didn't want to be in the infantry, you know. And I said, oh, I'll fly helicopters, but their quota was full to take me into that school. So they said, well, we'll sign up for your helicopter mechanic school, and then after you can apply for that while you're in, you know, take the test, and then we'll send you to flight school. I said, okay. So, you know, I went through basic, and they sent me to AIT in Fort Eustis, Virginia. I did the maintenance program, you know, for being a crew chief on a helicopter. And
how did you know you wanted to be a crew chief?
I didn't. They just stuck me in that because I was going to take the test to be a pilot. So I took all the tests while I was going through what they called advanced training, you know.
AIT?
Yeah, so, and then I went, after I graduated, I took all the tests, graduated. Then they sent me to Fort Hood, Texas, to a tank unit. And all we were doing was riot control training. And I'm going, man, this sucks. And I didn't know nothing about tanks, you know. So I came down on a levee to go to Vietnam. And I went in and talked to the guy, and I said, and I'd already been in probably 8 or 9 months by then in the military. And I knew by then, me in the Army, I didn't like it.
So, but in high school, graduating, wasn't it like a dark cloud looming over your head, Vietnam?
No, it didn't bother me.
Okay. So you were drafted?
Right.
Okay.
But then I enlisted, so.
Okay, explain that. You're drafted.
If you're drafted, you go in for 2 years.
Okay.
But you don't have a choice of what you do when you get in.
Okay.
But if you enlist, it was for 3 years, and you could pick.
Okay.
You know what MOS you wanted. So.
So finally, you're a crew chief, or that's your MOS.
Yeah.
Do you remember the number?
67 and 20.
67 and as a Nancy 20. Okay.
Right.
So tell me about when you first went to Vietnam, the flight over, and then when you opened the door of the airplane, what you experienced when you first day in country.
Okay. Well, we left Colorado on February, I believe the 17th or 19th. Mm-hmm. It was snowing. Mm-hmm. When we landed in Alaska to refuel, it was snowing. When we landed in Yokota, Japan to refuel, it was snowing. When they dumped us off in the tarmac in Vietnam, it was like 110 degrees on the steel PSP. And they threw our duffel bags out of the plane. We had to wait for those. And we sat there for a couple hours in the sun.
Brutal.
Typical Army, you know.
Yeah.
And then they finally got their stuff together and they sent us to a bunch of tents where we had a processing country. But the neat thing about us, we went over as a unit, so I knew everybody, which was great because a lot of the guys that got sent over there, you know, they were by themselves. They'd stick them in a new unit, and everybody stay away from them because the new guys got you killed because, you know, they hadn't been there long enough to learn what they need to learn, you know. So we checked in. They put us on I think it was a C-130. Man, we took off from there. We landed in Da Nang. We were only in Da Nang for maybe a half a day. And then they put us on Chinooks, CH-47s. And we flew from there up to Camp Evans. Well, Camp Evans was fairly new then. They were still building the camp, putting wires up. They hadn't even had any buildings for us yet. The CVs hadn't come yet, so we were living in tents. And they'd cut out some pads in the jungle there on the camp for our helicopters when we got them, but they weren't there yet. They were on a ship. They shipped them over from Oakland. I think they left Oakland Naval Yard. And then when they finally got there, they sent a bunch of us down to Da Nang to put the rotors back on, the main rotors and the tail rotors. And we stayed down there for about a week and a half. Me and another guy, we put all the tail rotors on, all our aircraft, 20 of them. And then they had other guys putting the main rotors on because you needed heavy lift stuff for that.
So what month did you get in country?
February.
Of 68?
69.
Oh, 69, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, because helicopter 658, you went right into the helicopter? That helicopter, you started?
I had it in Colorado.
That's right.
That's when I was
shipped
assigned.
it over there by a vessel.
Right,
ship.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of amazing that you had the same helicopter that you trained on, but...
Yeah, and the same pilots, which was really nice, you know. Because the pilots started teaching us how to fly in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Just in case they got shot, they wanted the crew chiefs able to fly them back. So I got some stick time in Colorado. We used to go down by Pueblo. There was a little, like a restaurant on the highway there. It was a little dinky place, but they let me fly around the hills there. And I got to where I could hover fairly decent, you know. I didn't get a lot of stick time, but I got some. And we mainly flew in the mountains because we're going to be flying in the mountains in Vietnam, you know. So several times we resupplied the Green Beret on top of Pikes Peak. They were guarding Cheyenne Mountain. We'd go up there in the summer and they'd have an elk hanging in a tree. So they'd be chowing down on elk, you know. So, but it was kind of neat training in Colorado because I had friends that lived in Georgetown and they owned a ranch, so I got to go see them, which was nice.
So did you train in Colorado with Dan and Ed, or did you meet them?
Yes. Yes.
So they were your pilots?
They were my original pilots, yeah.
How about Terry Gerke? Was he
from day one?
Your door gunner?
Yeah, Terry came in after we'd been there for we'd been in country for about a month when we started getting our door gunners because we hadn't been flying yet. They sent our pilots down to Camp Eagle to train with a company who'd been there and they'd already been going on missions. So they stuck our pilots in with their, what they call seasoned pilots, and they got to know the ropes a little bit, you know, flying down there in and out. And then they came back, and when they came back, that's when we started flying. Our first combat assault mission was on Easter Sunday. And I really remember that one because we didn't have any artillery units close enough to prep the LZ. So they had the Fire Base New Jersey prep the LZ. And that battleship, I'll tell you what, when those shells came in, we were about a mile out and there's a nice waterfall coming off the mountain and all the thick jungle. Man, next thing you know, that waterfall's gone. So is the jungle. I mean, it's just dirt and stumps. I'm going, whoa. I've never seen anything like that before, you know. So That was my first jaunt into the Ashaw Valley, and that was on Easter Sunday.
You did a lot of flying you said the Central Highlands. Is that where the Ashaw Valley was?
No, it was north in I-Corps.
Okay.
We were strictly in I-Corps.
Okay.
So we flew in South Vietnam, Laos, North Vietnam. We were in all those places.
But you were in the Ashaw Valley, right? No?
Our camp wasn't.
In your book?
Oh, yes. Yes, I was, yeah.
Okay. So that was your first combat assault was on Easter Sunday?
On Easter Sunday.
1969.
1969, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so lead me into some of your missions, maybe a more difficult mission, a hot landing zone. I mean, we're going to talk more about the book specifically, but just in your mind now, remembering, talking to me, what maybe were a couple of your hardest missions where maybe you lost people around you?
Oh, man, there's several. Okay, I'll go this one. The first time we took some hits and we had to go down, we were resupplying a company that was kind of on the side of a mountain, but they didn't blow the hole big enough for us to get down in there, so we had to hover above the canopy and drop the stuff down to them, the ammo and the food and water and stuff. And when we were dropping it down, I heard a crack, which was an AK-47 going off, and I heard it hit the helicopter. So I jumped back in my seat, and we flew down and we landed outside the wire at Firebase Currahee, which is on the bottom of the Ashaw. And kind of looking around, seeing where the bullet hit, and it hit the main rotor has an oil drip reservoir to lubricate it as it turns. And that round took out that reservoir, so all the oil was all over the place. So I red X'd my helicopter, which means you can't fly it. So maintenance flew a helicopter out there, and the maintenance officer took a look at it. He said, well, I better fly this back by myself. You guys get on the maintenance bird and we'll go back to Evans. So that was the first time. The second time was almost the same place, and it must have been the same sniper. Because I just moved to go forward, and if I hadn't, he would have got me right between the eyes. But it took out our hydraulic system because the armor-piercing round went in the transmission well, and both pilots had to get on the controls, and they were both fighting it. So we bailed off the side of that mountain, and when we hit the bottom of the Ashaw Valley, we were going about 80 knots. And Ashaw Valley was full of bomb craters and tree stumps and everything else. I don't know how we walked away from that one, because when we hit, I remember spinning around a bunch of times, but I don't remember how many. But when we came to a stop, we were still upright. I'm going, and my left shoulder really hurt. And I thought it was, just from getting slammed around. But in 2001, I found there's shrapnel in the socket of my left shoulder. So that came from that armor-piercing round. Part of it went in my back, and I didn't even know it, I just thought it beat up.
Is that called auto rotation when you're going down like that?
No, we went in at full power.
Oh.
Yeah. No, auto rotation is when something locks up and you just go in on your rotor power, and then you try to pick up airspeed, and then you pull all the pitch you can in rotor blades to slow your, slow your butt down before you hit the ground.
Do you think the enemy knew how to take a helicopter out of the sky, or are they just shooting at chance?
Okay, that's another story. Okay, I'll hit that one because we were finding, Life magazine put an article in their magazine that showed how to shoot down aircraft, how to lead them. We were finding dead Vietnamese soldiers in the Ashaw with copies of that magazine of how to lead and shoot down our helicopters and airplanes. Yeah.
Which magazine?
Life.
Oh my goodness, I can hardly believe that. I'm appalled.
If I'd have known that, remember the photographer I talked about in my book from Life magazine? He wanted to go on the Hamburger Hill and see what it was like. And when the bullets started flying, he got up behind the pilot seat and hid.
Yeah.
If I'd have known that, I'd probably left that guy in Hamburger Hill. But this was prior to us finding out about that magazine,
I'm
the
gonna
article.
go find that article. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's probably in the spring of '69, summer '69.
Yeah, 69. Yeah, somewhere in 69, you know.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then the third time we got shot up, we were unloading troops on top of a mountain up by the DMZ. And the Laos, were South Vietnam, Laos, and the DMZ all came together. And there's a river there, they called it the Brown Line. We were coming in on final with a load of infantry on it, and we just lost power. So my pilot banked to the left trying to pick up power, but everything just shut down. So before we hit the top of the jungle, they were turning off all the electric and the fuel pumps and everything. And we started crashing through the jungle. It was probably 300 or 400 feet up, you know, in the air. And when we were still about 100 feet off the ground, I was thinking about jumping up and grabbing a limb, you know, but we still had probably maybe 6 foot of rotor blades left, but they were just disintegrating because we were bouncing off trees this big, you know. When we hit, the skids bent up around the helicopter. We hit nose first. Got slammed up pretty good then. And the infantry on board, they just bailed. They thought it was going to blow up, so they were gone. So I had to release the safeties on the pilot seats and pull them out backwards. Got them out. My gunner started getting the machine guns off and getting some ammo. And I was responsible for this encrypted radio we had. So I went in the front of the nose thing, opened the nose, unhooked the radio. I got this radio, it had handles on it, but it was heavy. So I got the radio, I got my machine gun. We wrapped a whole bunch of ammo around us from our ammo cans. I had an M16 with 2 bandoliers loaded with full magazines, not just ammo, they were full magazines. So I gave that to my pilot. And I also had an M79 grenade launcher by my seat and a bag of grenades for it. So I threw them over my shoulder with the rest of the stuff. And then the infantry guys came back and they were in contact with the guys on top of the mountain. So we chopped our way back up to the top of the mountain and we're carrying all this stuff, you know. And when we got to the top, they were in a pretty heavy firefight. There was a couple guys already dead there, but they had them covered with ponchos, and a couple other were wounded, you know. And we heard a helicopter coming in, but the guy said, that's a Medevac. They're going to pull these guys out. We got wounded, and they couldn't land. It was a real steep mountain. They could only get so close, and they had to hoist the wounded guys up, and the crew chief and gunner pulled them in, you know. And I was talking to the lieutenant, and he said, man, we got to move pretty soon because we can't hold this position. I go, shit. But then one of our helicopters heard we got shot down, so they refueled and came back empty. And when we heard that, then I was happy. So I asked that lieutenant, I said, you want all this ammo? And I said, you can have our 60s too, I'll get some more. And he said, no, we don't want those because they were made for mounts, you know, not for holding by hand. So me and my gunner unwrapped all the ammo we had. I probably had 300 rounds wrapped around me, and so did my gunner. And then I said, I got all these M16 magazines loaded. He said, oh, I'll take those, you know. And I said, I also got a 79, you want that? And he said, what do you got for it? I said, well, I got 5 high explosive, 5 white phosphorus, 5 flare rounds, and 5 shotgun rounds in that bag there. I said, you can have those too. And it was like Christmas to them because they could use that tonight because they were getting hit hard, you know. And then our helicopter came in, we threw our machine guns up, and I had to boost my pilot up because he was kind of short. So they could grab him, you know. They got Mr. Snyder in there, and me and my gunner jumped up, and we got pulled in. We got the other pilot in, and we got out of there. That was the third time. When I started flying in March This was in October, the third time we got shot up. When I got back, I told my sergeant, I said, you know what, that's the third time, I'm kind of done. And you didn't have to fly, it was voluntary. You could take yourself off flight status because you got extra pay for flying. So he said, no, he said, man, I really need you. I want you to crew the CNC ship with all the radios on it. He said, then you won't have to go on these LCs anymore. And he says, we're short people. And I said, okay. You know, so I said, all right, I'll do that. So then I started crewing the CNC ship, and our company commander's the one that flew that. And so most of the time we were just monitoring missions, you know, from above.
After October?
Yeah, from October to February.
When you left, yeah.
No, I didn't leave till April, but I quit flying in February.
Okay.
I flew for a year.
Okay.
And then I almost got shot down in North Vietnam. So when I came back from that mission, that was it. I was done.
So you didn't have to be flying as a crew chief? You could have just been doing ground maintenance? Or
Sure, yeah.
So you opted to fly, not for the money?
No, I just, you know, I just
wanted to be out there?
Yeah, I just wanted to be out there.
Did you ever have to take over the controls of the aircraft because of the pilot or co-pilot having problems? But
not from us being shot up, but I did fly once. It's probably kind of it's a good story if you want to hear it.
Did you fly in a combat mission or just fly a helicopter?
Well, here's what happened.
Tell me what happened.
I was sitting in the CNC ship. It had all the radios in it, and maintenance captain came out and said, hey, let's go for a ride. I said, okay, I'll go get a gunner. He said, no. He says, you don't need a gunner. Throw your stuff up in the left front seat, and you're going to be flying up there with me. And he said, I promised 2 of the cooks to take them for a ride. He said, but they want to sit back where you and your gunner sit behind the machine guns. I go, okay. So I go get the machine guns. I mount them. I lifted up the feed tray and I put the ammo in it and I locked the feed trays down, but I didn't load them because I didn't want them shooting my machine guns because it took a long time to clean them. And since I didn't have a door gunner, it'd be me, you know, up after hours cleaning both guns. So I didn't load them. So I get my stuff, I get up front, we take off. He's flying around a little bit. We're in the air 5 minutes and we get a call to go back to Camp Evans, to the main pad. Captain's going, oh, Terry, tuck in your collar, because I have my Spec 5 insignias on my collar. So I tucked the collar inside my shirt. We landed at the pad. Here comes the camp commander out, full bird colonel. Jumps in the helicopter, plugs in his helmet, puts a map on the center console, and he's talking to me because I'm in the aircraft commander seat. He said, I need you to fly around here. I got 2 F4s coming in to drop napalm, and I want to uncover these railroad tracks in here so we can pull some combat assault missions out there. He says, do you know where this is at? And I said, yes, sir. We've been pulling combat assaults out there the last few weeks. He goes, okay. So he says, back. Captain Rose looks at me and I point this way. So he takes off. We get up in the air and I said, okay, I got it. I flew us out there, got us in orbit. He called the F4s. They made one run in. He didn't like it. We flew over it after the smoke cleared, but he wanted them to hit it again. So we got out of the way and F4s came in again and dropped more napalm on canisters on it and cleared it out pretty good. So then we flew back to Camp Evans. When we got close, I told Captain Rose, I said, okay, you got it. So he took it. We landed. Guy tapped me on the head, thanks a lot, unplugged and jumped out. And Captain Rose is going. He's standing there shaking his head. He says, man, if he knew a crew chief was flying around, I'd be busting rocks in Leavenworth for the next 20 years. And I thought to myself, now probably 30 because the guys in the back were cooks and they didn't have, their machine guns weren't even loaded.
Oh my God.
So and he said, I could kiss the guys that taught you how to fly because by then I'd had probably close to maybe 50 hours of stick time. And I even shot what they called GCAs at night, ground controlled approaches, by radar. They put a hood on me, and I'd get up in the front seat, and they'd fly me in by radar and just guide me in. And I could come right down the center of the runway, So I actually got pretty good at flying. It's probably a good thing I did. We might have both been in the brig for that one.
Man. But how come you didn't become a pilot now?
Oh, okay. Part of my story. Okay, when I came down on levee to go to Vietnam, I went in and said, "Where am I going?" They said, "Well, you're supposed to go to Colorado to a helicopter, but you can't. They got your file flagged." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, you passed all the tests to become a pilot. They're going to talk to you about going to flight school." I said, "When?" I said, "I've been in 8 months and I haven't heard, a peep from anybody." So I said, "And now I'm not going to flight school for 19 weeks and then spend another 3 years in this Army." I said, "No way." I said, I signed a waiver to go to that unit to go to Vietnam. Because I was done with the tanks, I was done with riot control training. And here's a little side deal. When I was at Fort Hood, we were on 20-minute standby to go to the riots in Chicago. We were sleeping in our clothes. One morning they woke us up blowing those whistles. I looked out front. Man, there's like 8 Greyhound buses, all these Texas state police cars, all these MP cars. They said, "Get your gear and get in them buses." Man, we got in them buses. We started going across Texas 100 miles an hour in these buses. The Texas police were going ahead of us and stopping all the traffic, and we were blowing through these towns. And then finally they told us they were taking us to a plane wreck. A Braniff Airlines plane had crashed, and it was spread over 3 miles, and people were looting the wreckage. So they sent us out there to secure the plane wreck.
Wow.
And the bad part was the only whole body they found was one being shipped in a casket. I mean, the rest they were finding with rakes. And they set the mess hall up right in the middle of that. I didn't eat for 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was bad. And then they sent me and a LERP. His name was Rasmussen. They sent us down to guard the tail section of the aircraft because it was like, a mile or two down by the main wreckage in a swamp, So we got down there and we were sitting in the ferns, and it was a full moon that night. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. We see this guy coming across the swamp. We had a radio, and we had police in our main camp. So we see the guy wading across. It was, a pretty good sized swamp. He's wading across. And I said, "Well, we're going to call in and get him." He said, "Man, I don't want to get all wet." He said, "Let's wait till he gets out. Then we'll grab him. And we won't have to be in the swamp." I said, "Yeah, sounds good to me, man." So we're waiting for him. And he just got back from doing a tour in Vietnam, and the guy got closer and closer. When he was almost to the shore, Rasmussen looked at me. He said, "Hey, man, that's a black dude." He says, "I got a better idea." He said, "They're really superstitious." And I'm going, "Okay, I'll go with it." So this guy gets out and he starts digging around the tail section of the aircraft. And Rasmussen had a real deep voice, and he went, "Leave my wallet alone." That guy's eyes got as big as almost like watching, TV. He almost walked on water like Jesus did, going back across that swamp. And he made so much noise, they heard it at the base camp. And they called us up on the radio, and we were laughing because it was funny. And Rasmussen got on the radio and he said, "We spooked a looter." And then when he said that, we started laughing even more. And finally they're calling us. And I said, "Where's he at?" And town was about 8 miles away, the main town. And Rasmussen says, he's probably hitting the city limits about right now. But that was crazy. I'll tell you what, some crazy things happened to me in the Army, you know, and in Vietnam too. So we better get back to that. I'm sorry it took up so much time.
You're okay. I want to show this to the camera. An Eagle's Eye View. This is a book that you wrote about Helicopter 658. And you was basically your journal, your diary from February to May, end of May, right?
I kept a diary almost all the way to November.
Okay, but this book, it goes to the crash.
It only lasted until the end of May.
Well, okay, so I want you to tell me just a bit about Dan Shea. Was he the aircraft commander? Dan?
Yes.
Okay, Ed, pronounce Ed's last name.
Sakinas.
Sakinas?
Yes.
Okay, and then there was Terry Gerke was your door gunner.
Right.
Tell me just a little bit about each person during your time in Vietnam. What type of people these three guys were?
Okay. Ed was quite the pool player. Ed Sakinas. He could probably put the 8-ball in the pocket on the break, 9 out of 10 times. He was that good. So he made a lot of money shooting pool. So, and then, because we went to bars a few times and watched him play, watched him win quite a bit of money, and he was a hell of a pilot. Ed was a really good pilot, and so was Dan. They were probably two of the better pilots I flew with, And Dan was from California, and I got to know Dan quite a bit while we were flying in Colorado, and just really, really decent guys, and turned out to be great pilots. But after that helicopter crashed, they went on to different helicopters because they both had so much time in country now. They made them aircraft commanders, so they each got their own aircraft, and I was waiting on another one when that one crashed. So,
what about Gerke? What kind of door gunner was he? What kind of guy was he?
Gerke was really good. He was Gerke was alert. He was in long-range recon patrol, and he told me a little bit. He didn't go into it in much detail, but he said the last mission they went on, he was the only one to come back. So that's why he decided, he wanted to be a door gunner, just get away from being out there. And I kind of don't blame him, because one of the other guys, I had several door gunners later, but another one was LERP, and he said, he says, they used to send us out on LPs, a couple of us, with a radio, and then if we heard any movement, we would call in artillery on the movement. He said, but the artillery calls them short rounds. Sometimes the rounds don't hit where they're supposed to. So he said, after getting hammered real close by artillery a few times, he said, when you were out there on those LPs, you didn't hear a thing, man. And that kept you alive, So
on one of your combat assaults, one of your, hot LZ insertions, one of your combat assaults, how were Dan, Ed, and Terry Gerke under fire? And were there 1 or 2 machine guns on a UH-1?
There's 2, one on each side.
Did you man one did you ever shoot one?
Yeah, each of us had an M60.
You were a door gunner and a crew chief.
And a crew chief, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about one mission that comes to mind where under fire, whatever was happening, and these guys in action. Do they take command, verbal command? Troops in and out of the Huey. How was the interaction with all that when it's chaotic up there?
Oh, you know what? They were all really calm, when they were getting shot at. And these guys, they're sitting up front. They got the windshield. They got the shin bubble, which is clear. And sometimes when the round's going through a shin bubble, it's kind of hard to keep your feet on the pedals when you're flying. But they did. And some of the times, if we were picking up people on ropes, you'd have to guide them, and I'd have to lay on my stomach and tell them which way to go, and I remember one time we were picking up a team and they were in a valley. And I dropped the ropes down. I counted them first because there's only supposed to be 4. If there was more than 4, we were told to shoot them and get out of there because it was a setup. But on the sides of this valley, there was some NBA over here, and they were throwing, I call them potato mashers, you know, those grenades. He was throwing them at us, but he couldn't reach us. They were going off underneath the helicopter, but every time he threw one, I'd roll back inside and let it go off, and then I'd go out. And my pilot was yelling, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "There's just an NBA over there throwing grenades." He said, "He can't reach us." I said, and I couldn't get up to shoot him because I had to keep them above the guys on the ground with these ropes so they wouldn't get tangled. So I told him, call the gunships and just have them get that guy there at 9 o'clock. So he called the gunships. Next thing I know, man, I see like 4 rockets go. Big old explosion, you know, dirt and bamboo flying, and no more grenades tossed at us. So we got the guys hooked up on the ropes. One of them was hit bad. He was hanging limp. So we had to fly back to Caisson. And just before we got to Caisson was abandoned then. The gunships would go in, the Cobras went in and they minigunned a spot for us to trip any booby traps Charlie left. And then we got the guys on the ground. We got the one wounded guy in the helicopter, got the other guys in, got the ropes in. I had a big first aid kit on our helicopter, so I slapped some plastic. He had a sucking chest wound. So I slapped some plastic on him, and then we headed back for South Vietnam as fast as we could and got him to we had a little, like a MASH unit on Camp Evans where they'd kind of patch them up, and then we'd take them out to the hospital ship where they could do more extensive stuff on the guys if they needed it.
So I was going to ask you, were you ever used as a medevac?
Oh, quite a bit. If it was a hot LZ, we went in and picked up the wounded. The medevacs didn't, you know, because Charlie didn't care.
Well, what was that like? I mean, come on.
Oh, just going in there. Actually, I got used to being shot at. It's kind of funny.
Wow.
Because when we went to take bodies off of Hamburger Hill and resupply them, we did both. We'd ferry them across to the fire base on the other side of the Asha, and then they'd take the bodies out on a Chinook. Every time we went in there, we were getting shot. I mean, you could hear them zipping by, you know. And I'd been doing so much flying that I actually fell asleep going in there once. And I hadn't slept for 3 days. Because when we fly, every 25 hours, you have to do a periodic inspection, take oil samples and check everything. Well, I was doing that every 2 days. And you fly 18, 19 hours a day, you don't get any sleep because there's things you have to do on that helicopter. So you just gear up and go again, you know. And I had the ADF on. I was listening to Glenn Campbell sing "Gentle on My Mind" as I was going into Hamburger Hill, and I fell asleep. I heard my pilot yelling, "Chief, are you in?" I said, "No, I was sleeping." "What?" I said, "They're shooting at us." I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "I haven't slept for 3 days. I'm tired, you know." So we picked up some more, you know, casualties from Hamburger, took them across, and then we flew back to Camp Evans. And my pilots got another helicopter, and they went back, and I think I slept for like 30 hours straight that time when I hit the deck, but I was tired. But you actually get used to being shot at, which is, I don't know,
Didn't you have...
you got to deal with it, you know?
I mean, this sounds so childish, but wasn't it scary?
No, because you're so busy, you know?
How about the first times, the baptism under fire, the first times you're being shot at, was it like, I feel invincible until the bullets start flying? I mean, did you ever feel...
No, I never felt invincible. I mean, there was pucker factors lots of times, you know? Especially going into North Vietnam on these, you know, FOB missions and CCN missions. because they used to wave at us because they thought we were Russians, you know, so we'd wave back if we were taking a team in.
Yeah.
But if we were picking up a team, it was a whole different story because they were being chased, and that's a whole nother ball game there.
Tell me just historically, Hamburger Hill, why it was called that, and then your support of that mission.
Okay, well, the reason they called it is because so many guys got chewed up on it.
So at the time, it wasn't called Hamburger Hill?
No. Dong Ap Bai was the name of that hill. And no, they didn't put that sign on until they took the top of the hill, and they just wrote it on a piece of cardboard. In fact, I think there's a picture of it.
I think so too.
Yeah. And the part they didn't show in the movie, the part I never heard about, the infantry went up between two ridges that came, finger ridges that came off of Hamburger Hill or Dong Ap Bai. But Charlie had built cement bunkers on those ridges when they were fighting the French. So they had all this vegetation on top of the bunkers, you know. So these guys walked up in between these bunkers, and Charlie got them from both sides and just waxed them. I mean, just annihilated the guys. And that was the initial, you know, deal when they took out a whole bunch. And then Charlie was really fighting them when they were, you know, trying to go up the hill too. He was dug in pretty good.
So when you say Charlie, you talking Viet Cong or North Vietnamese?
Both North Vietnamese and Viet Cong.
Okay. Well, did they wear uniforms?
The VC, you know, they were the black pajamas, and they didn't wear those. Well, I guess they did wear those conical hats, you know. Sometimes when they were fighting, but most of the time they had rags wrapped around their head, you know, black rags and black pajamas. And then the NBA, they had regular uniforms. Yeah. They were tan, kind of a tan color.
We were talking about so much here. You're telling this story like it's almost surreal listening to you and imagining you. And I've talked to so many Vietnam veterans that were ground troops, but they're very traumatized by war, the PTSD. Did you ever have any mental issues when you came home? If you didn't, okay.
Oh yeah. I used to have this reoccurring dream. They were drafting me and sending me back. I mean, that one wouldn't go away, you know. And I had, you know, pretty good PTSD symptoms when I came back, because I guess one of them is when I came back, I joined the Phoenix PD, and I was on that for a while, you know. And they stuck all the vets down in South Phoenix because we were having riots at the time, so. But I didn't stay on that long because, you know, that's another story. I won't went into that one.
But just quickly, you were a patrol officer, police officer? For how long?
Let's see. They hired me in June. I left in September.
Okay.
But at the time, we were 2 weeks on the streets and 2 weeks in the academy, because I think they were short police officers. But then one night, we were chasing a guy. One unit was in front of us. I was on the paddy wagon, me and another guy. And when they saw us, they knew coming. They knew they were going to jail. So, but this patrol unit was chasing this other guy. He ran in the house, came out, took out the front windshield of the patrol unit with a shotgun, ran back in the house. Me and my partner ran out back. The other guy stayed out front. Then a sergeant came, and then a lieutenant came, and they said, well, we're just going to let him go because we don't want to start any riot. So the next day I put my badge and my gun on the desk, and I said, at least in Vietnam I could shoot back. And I said, I was getting a whopping $96 every 2 weeks. So that was the end of my police career.
I hear that. So, I mean, are these memories still really vivid in your mind that you're telling me, or are they fading?
I probably got the best memory out of all my buddies, because they always call me and ask me about stuff. They're all skull. My memory's starting to fade now because I'm getting older, man.
Well, is Dan, Ed, and Terry Gerke still alive?
Gerke is, as far as I know. He doesn't like to talk about anything. Dan's had several strokes, but he's still doing okay. Carolyn's a good caretaker for him, his wife. So, and let's see, Ed passed away. I can't remember what year it was. I'd sent him some books, and they came back. And then by chance, I think his brother-in-law or something bought one of my books and read about Ed. So he got one of the books to Ed's wife, so she read it. She didn't want anything to do with it to begin with,
So where do Dan and Terry Gerke live?
Gerke, I believe, is in Washington.
State?
Yes, and Dan's in California.
Do you think they would ever talk to me, even though we've talked? I mean, if you told them I talked to Larry and tell them a little bit about me, you think they would be interested at all? Would there be any interest?
I don't know if Dan's in good enough shape.
Okay, yeah.
And like I said, Terry didn't even want to talk to me at all, period.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, but I think what happened to him in the LRPs is still, that's still really bugging him. But here's the funny thing. My ex-brother-in-law's sister, my ex-brother-in-law gave his sister one of my books. Well, she's on an airplane flying back to DC. She says, I'm looking, and the guy, I take out your book, and the guy sitting next to me says, I'm on page so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. It was Terry Gerke.
Is that right?
Yeah, so.
He's seen your book?
Yeah, I sent him a copy of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent him a copy of the book, but like I said, he didn't want to talk to me at all, hardly.
So, I mean, I know there's really no glory in war, but the helicopters, the formations, the radio chatter, the battle raging. I mean, Creedence Clearwater Revival or whatever playing on the radio. I mean, that's kind of that Hollywood glamour thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, did you ever have glimpses of that back then, or was it just your job? Or did you ever think about God and country, or was it just survival?
I was doing my patriotic duty. I was a true blue American, and many a times I was scared, In fact, if you want another story, I'd kick into this one. Okay, this was a good one. We got tagged to be chase ships for a CCN mission, one of those, SOG missions, and the Vietnamese Air Force, they had these Y-37s, one looked like grasshoppers, We went over there, they rigged up 3 of our aircraft with ropes, and we were gonna fly behind them, and if anybody got shot down, we'd pick them up with ropes if we had to. So we, let's see, what was it? Okay. They picked up the guys, there was either 21 or 22, I don't remember how many to be exact. Well, they flew them over into Laos and dropped them off. And we were just flying in orbit above. They had, their 3 aircraft. We had like 6 gunships. And I think there was like 4 F-4s with us too, in case we needed them. Well, they dropped these guys off. And this was early in the morning. So we flew back. That afternoon, we got a call to go pick them up. And they all had these big backpacks on, And I didn't know what they were because they weren't rucks they had, when they dropped them off. They had web belts and these big packs. So I said, okay. So when we got close to Laos, there was so much shooting going on. These guys were having to scream in the radio to be heard. And as soon as the Vietnamese pilots heard that, they said, King be no go, King be go home. And they all 3 turned around and went back. So that left our 3 UH-1s to pick up these 21 guys, or 22. And I was flying trail ship that day. So I was going to be the last one in that LZ to pick up the remaining guys. Man, I'll tell you what, I never heard so many bullets zip by, and my aircraft got hit quite a few times going in, so did the other ones. But first two went in, I think they each picked up, 7, maybe one picked up 8. They got out, we were the last ones in. Man, we picked these guys up, they were all shooting, me and my gunner were shooting, we were shooting the whole way in and the whole way out. And I probably shot 1,700 rounds going in and out of that. And so did my gunner, and so were the guys on the ground. They were just emptying it out. And we got up in the air and we got out of there. I talked to one of those guys and I said, hey, man, what did you guys do to piss Charlie off so bad? He says, well, they've been shooting down all our medevacs. So we wanted to send them a message. He said, all those backpacks we had on this morning, he said, they were full of C4. We went in and blew up their hospital with everybody in it. I said, okay, that makes sense. So I'm telling this story to my son-in-law's dad. He looks at me real funny. That was me you picked up there.
Wow.
He was a SOG commander over there for 3 tours. What a story. Plus he did 25 years in the FBI and 13 in the CIA. He was a real James Bond. That guy could tell you stories make your hair curl.
We're going to kind of start winding down, but tell me, just one of your medevac pickups, just tell me what you remember about the casualties and if you had interaction with them, or did it become routine, or do you even have to deal with the troops? Did you ever physically pick them up, put them in the helicopter, or the bodies, dead bodies? Tell me one or two missions like that. Do you remember how bad it was?
Oh yeah, well, on Hamburger we handled a lot of bodies. Me and my gunner had to pull them up, set them in the aircraft. And then we flew them across the valley, dropped them off at the fire base, and then we go back and get more. Sometimes, let's see, trying to think other times. We had a bunch of activity outside our wire one day, and we picked up a squad, and we flew them out there. And after we picked them up, they said, "What are we doing?" I said, they had some activity outside the wire. I said, you guys better be careful of booby traps, because Charlie was probably setting booby traps out there. So they go, oh yeah, okay. So we landed maybe just 100 yards over our fence at Camp Evans and dropped them off. We picked up, before we got back to our main pad at Camp Evans, we got a call to go back and pick them up. They tripped a booby trap. So we went back, we landed, and here all these guys come, and they were all full of holes from that booby trap going off. None of them really bad hurt, but they were all bleeding pretty good, and they're all full of holes. And I just looked at them and shook my head, and they knew what I meant. They didn't listen to me,
Well, you're talking about on Hamburger Hill, you and Gerke were picking up bodies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You landed and...
No, we couldn't land.
Okay, so...
Because of the tree stumps and the angle of the mountain.
How high are you off the ground?
Probably 6 feet. We had to stand on the skids and actually reach down and pick up the bodies and pull them into the helicopter.
I don't know how you did that. These were dead bodies.
Yeah.
Didn't that affect you as a young man? That never became routine, obviously.
No. Oh yeah, it affects you, in a way. It is, what?
You seem to be a special person that can handle that, but that...
Well, probably, I was pretty religious, I believed in Jesus since I was probably 2 years old. And I figured, what? They're going to take care of me, and he did, because I shouldn't be sitting here. There was one time when my aircraft was down for maintenance, and my pilot that flew my aircraft all the time, he was the captain, took another aircraft and a friend of mine who just started crewing, and they went out. Well, they didn't come back. They landed on a Chinese mine, a trash can mine about this big, and it turned A.W. Smith into jello because one of our other helicopters landed. The crew chief went over there to pick him up, but he said he couldn't pick him up because he was all from the concussion. He said he just took his dog tags and they came right through his neck. And that was Mike Doors. And Mike said that's all they could get of him, you know, and then the other pilots were burned pretty good. And we were still flying in our jungle fatigues at the time. We were supposed to have Nomex flight suits, you know, that were fireproof. Mm-hmm. After that one accident, the next day they miraculously showed up. So heads wouldn't roll above us for those guys, you know, flying in jungle fatigues when they should have had Nomex flight suits on, you know. Mm-hmm.
But did you ever have any interaction with the wounded, or were there medics on board, or how?
No medics. Oh, many times I was patching guys up. We picked up a bunch of wounded on one of the hot LZs in Hamburger and took them back, you know. We took them back to Camp Evans, and many times I was holding up, you know, IV bottles that their medics had put on them, you know, before we got them in the helicopter, you know. Me and my gunner would be holding them up and, you know, trying to do what we could, give some of the guys cigarettes and stuff and water to drink out of our canteens, you know.
Are you encouraging them, hang on, hold on, you're going to make it?
Oh, yeah. And our pilots were just zipping back. We were maxing those things out at 120 knots, going back to Evans with the wounded, you know.
Is that where the field hospital was?
Yeah, it's like a MASH unit. So they had doctors there were pretty good. They kept most of them alive, but being that I wasn't with the infantry, I didn't interact with them that much because our camp was different than theirs. They were on probably the other side of Camp Evans. Mm-hmm. The only time I saw them was when we were picking them up or taking them out, you know, in the field or resupplying them. Or sometimes we'd go out to the fire blazes and if we had time, we'd sit down and eat with them, you know.
Yeah.
That's where I learned you could take C4 and light it with a match, and it'd boil your C rations or your water real quick.
So tell me about your last day in Vietnam. What do you remember about that?
My last day. Okay, Cam Ranh Bay. They made me leave my knife I had. The Ho Chi Minh sandals I bought in the PX, my rubber sandals. Why, I don't know. They said any other contraband, if they catch you with anything, you'd be staying there. So everybody's emptying out their pockets because we wanted to get on that bird going home, you know. And then I remember sleeping in the dirt all night because there was no place to sleep down there. And I felt naked because I didn't have anything because when I left Camp Evans, I had to turn everything in, all my weapons. Because we carried 38s all the time too, 38 revolvers, plus our M16s, plus anything else we could scrounge. And usually we could get all the weapons we wanted to because we'd haul them back from the field. And the guys, we were hauling them back, they didn't need them anymore. So that's how I got the grenade launchers and everything else, you know.
Mm-hmm. So going home was uneventful? You ended up at Travis, or where did you come in?
Came in Fort Lewis, Washington. I think I was there for a day and a half. Mm-hmm. We came in, we landed about 1 o'clock in the morning. They said if we wanted our free steak dinner they gave you, we'd have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and eat it. So I opted to sleep in. We got up, we did some paperwork. They sent us to a bunch of buildings, and then they called us out in the formation. This one sergeant did, and I was the ranking person at the time, so he told me to follow these guys in and do a police call all the way over to this building to where we pick up our final pay to go home. So the sergeant went back in the building. I said, This is the last command I give in the Army. Everybody put your hands in your pockets and follow me. Zipped across that field, got our final pay, and we all headed to the airport and went home. And some of the guys were just going home on leave, and I was going home permanent because I had 5 months or less in the Army, so I was out.
So was your homecoming like some of the others that I've heard, you know, protesters and things like that? Did you have that experience?
Yeah, when I got to the airport, you know, these Hare Krishna people, you know, they had the kind of like white robes on or whatever. They were spitting on everybody in the airport. One guy came up to me, and I knew he was going to spit on me. And I said, "You better not do it, because it'll be the last thing you do on God's green earth." I said, "I left Vietnam 2 days ago. What do you think I'm going to do to you?" He turned around, and he left. He was gone. I didn't go right home. I had a friend of mine who was over there with me, Sweet, who's in my book. He lived in LA. My parents were living in Palm Springs. So I flew down to LA, and I stayed with Roger for a couple of days because I ate a hamburger in the airport and I threw it up because it was so spicy. I was used to food that was bland. Like I told you, the food we were eating in Vietnam was 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
So I landed in LA. Roger picked me up, and I stayed there for a couple of days and just kind of walked around in the streets and trying to get my head on straight before I went home, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I went home, nobody would come in my bedroom. They'd knock on the door to wake me up, because usually when I came out of bed, because in Camp Evans, the wire was real close to where I was at. So you slept with your M16 on. I slept with mine on full auto. No safety, no nothing. It was laying next to me on full auto. Because they came through the wire, I had like maybe 2 minutes to wake up, get up, and start shooting, you know, so. And we got hit quite a bit at Camp Evans. In fact, one night they came in, we had 30 sappers come in. They got under the wire. They were crawling up the gully to our helicopters. All our helicopters were parked. They all had satchel charges. But it was during the monsoon season, and we just pulled all the units back out of the Ashaw Valley and the dog units. Well, the dogs started going nuts when they smelled them. So the dog handlers knew what was going on. They turned the dogs loose. The dogs killed all 30 of them.
Wow.
There was a lot of screaming that night.
We're almost done, but the Medevac missions, for some reason, they were just really close to my heart, because I just imagine what you're trying to tell me, you know, kind of like slow it down, and yet it was probably organized chaos. And you said the pilots were great to get them back to the field hospital, but I mean, that must have been an amazing thing that you did. I mean, you can't be trained to do that, I don't think. So you just reacted in the situation, right? I mean,
yeah.
When it happened, they didn't say, "Go get them." Did you just go get them yourself? Did you radio it in, or they tell you to go pick them up, or?
Oh, they didn't, you know, if they called for a medevac, whoever was closest,
Okay.
we'd go get them.
You weren't really a designated Red Cross medevac.
Oh, no.
You became a medevac, no.
If the LZs were hot, or if nobody else was around, we'd go in and get them.
Okay.
We'd pick up the wounded and get them out.
Did you ever set down in those LZs, or did you have to stay hovering above the ground to get the
Probably a combination of both. Sometimes we could land, a lot of times we couldn't, you know. They'd have to hand them up to us, you know.
But it was pretty quick, things happening.
Yeah, we tried to get in and out as quick as we could, because we were a sitting duck in those LZs, and that's usually when you got hit by an RPG. In fact, I've got a good RPG story if you want to hear it. Mm-hmm. One of the times I got shot up hovering above the canopy up by Hamburger Hill. On our way in, Charlie shot an RPG at us out of the jungle. I saw it come up, and it just arced over and went back down, because we had enough altitude to be out of its range. So we went in, we dropped the guy's supplies through the canopy up there. I got a can of red smoke, and I told the pilots to fly back the way we'd come. They go, okay. I said, I'm going to mark that guy with red smoke. So we were flying back, and and if they flew at 80 knots, I knew a place on my skid to look for. As soon as it hit that position, I could throw something straight down, and it would land in that spot. So we got up there, and I threw that red smoke down. I hit right where that thing came up. I said, I nailed it. I said, get a gunship and have them hit that red smoke. So I'm looking out the red smoke. Next thing I know, I'm looking in the cockpit of an F4. He went right underneath us, dropped a can of napalm on my red smoke, and went vertical. Our helicopter started shaking. My pilot goes, what was that? What was that? I said, that was service. I said, that was an F4. He just dropped napalm right on my red smoke. He goes, man, that was awesome. That's the closest I've ever been to an F4.
Wow.
It was.
Terry, have you ever been to the Vietnam Wall?
Just the traveling one.
Do you ever want to go to D.C. and see the real one or not?
I don't know. But that helicopter was at the wall in D.C.
Yeah.
And that helicopter crashed and burned a few years ago in New Mexico.
Oh, no.
A guy refitted it and everything. It had passed through hands from the museum to somebody else. Some guys in Oklahoma bought it, and they were flying it to schools and stuff. And then some arms dealer bought it. It had a big ranch in New Mexico someplace. And I got to know the pilot who was flying it. He was a retired California highway patrol pilot on their helicopters. And him and a Cobra pilot from Vietnam, the guy who owned the helicopter, the guy's girlfriend and the guy's dad were all on it. And they were flying to his ranch at night, I believe, and they hit the top of a mesa. And that helicopter skidded for like, I think they said 400 or 500 feet, flipped upside down, and then burnt just down to a puddle. Some of them were still alive. They helped everybody get out, but the only one who survived was the lady. Everybody else died. And I was supposed to, they were going to take me for a ride on my next trip to Colorado. So, and when I couldn't get a hold of the guy, I called the airport where they had it there. And he said, man, I hate to tell you this. He said, but it crashed. He said, it's gone, you know? So that's how I found out about that helicopter. So I never saw it again after I left Vietnam.
Well, tell me, Terry, as we end this interview, and it's been amazing, tell me what the American flag means and represents to you.
Oh, man. Everything. A lot of guys died for that flag, you know? And when they disrespect it, man, it hurts. It hurts.
What does freedom mean to you and the price for freedom?
Oh, man. You know, people don't really know what freedom is. The freedom I had when I was young, we don't even have that today here in the States. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. So people better start waking up. That's all I got to say, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're stripping it from us left and right. And freedom's important to everybody, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah. What I tell people is that we're fighting for the same freedoms today in our own country that our veterans fought for on foreign soil.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And with the World War II generation passing away, it's no coincidence, I don't think, that, you know, evil's trying to rear its ugly head and communism and the whole bit, man. It's just, we won't go into that now, but thank you for what you shared. Do you remember what I asked at the end of my interviews?
That's been too long, Larry.
I'm going to ask you to give a salute into the camera. Before I ask that, 100, okay, give me you were with the 101st Airborne?
I was with the 158th Assault Helicopter Battalion, 101st Airborne Division, 3rd Brigade.
In your rank?
I was a Spec 5.
Okay, so you were SP5, whatever?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's good. And yeah, when I ask you, if you could, from where you're seated, for the camera's sake, could you just look?
Okay.
I just want you to look into the camera if you want to say something. If not, just give a salute into the camera.
Okay.
Amen, brother. God bless you. Really, it's been great to see you again. And after 18 years.
Yeah, sorry I teared up a little bit there.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how you can't tear up. I mean, I just am so moved by your story, and many, many people will be also.
You know, that's just like, I just talked about 5 or 6 days. I flew for a year. Something different happened every day. I could tell stories still, probably for a week.
You need to write another book. I'm going to ask you quickly, because we got to stop, but I'm going to ask you about one more person.
Okay.
I had this bookmark. Tell me about Gene Parks.
Okay, Gene's my friend in Idaho.
Okay. He
and I are still good friends. In fact, I saw him a few months ago. He came down here and we went, he has a place he stays at his cousin's place in his trailer in, oh man, what's the name of that town?
Well, just tell me what he did in Vietnam.
Gene was a crew chief also.
Crew chief.
Yeah, we met pulling KP in Colorado, peeling potatoes. We got to yakking so much when the cook came to get the potatoes, they were in an automatic thing. They looked like new potatoes. So we got kicked off of KP for that one. But yeah, I met Gene in Colorado, and we both trained he was in maintenance. He didn't start crewing until we came to Vietnam. And the guys in maintenance had to pull all the nasty details back at Camp Evans, burning, you know what, in barrels and pulling guard duty and KP and everything else.
And the other gentleman, is it Swede or Sweetie? What'd you call him?
Yeah, Swede, Roger Olson.
What was his job?
Roger was a crew chief.
Okay, same thing.
Yeah, he was a crew chief.
Okay.
And the story about Roger was he came here on a work visa and got drafted. He'd already done his time in the Swedish Army, you know. So, but that's another good story there. You know, there's lots of stories.
I'm going to stop now. I'm going to have you come over here, and what we're going to do is take a picture. So.
Okay.
But that was awesome, brother. Yeah, I want to shake your hand.
Okay.
Let's say thank you for serving in our country. Thank you for serving our country in Vietnam and your story. I will be a good steward of your story, I promise. And I just so appreciate you. And I know you're a man of faith, and our Lord has got us through a lot of things. So I just appreciate everything that you do.
Well, thank you very much.
It's been a blessing to see you again.
Yeah.
And you're
been nice seeing you, man.
You're one of my guys, and I'm just so thrilled to have your story now. I know the first interview was great, and those segments are featured in my film, but now we got your whole interview again, and you're going to become a star on my YouTube channel. Right.